the channel. We're doing our battle video for TCG Pocket on this one. Pretty cool. We got some cool stuff in the pipes, but I got a little bit of bad news on the other video I did on resources. I forgot one, and because of the way I structure these videos, I wanted to make sure I mentioned it really quickly. It's called the kind of the community would refer to as like pity timer or pity points. So let me show you what this is. When you go into your pack menu, you have like all these packs. You can click one, you get the pack menu. This little dot down here, the pack point exchange. You can hold a maximum of 2,500, and you can see if I wanted a Bulbasaur, it cost me 35 points, I could get one. So this is basically the system saying that if you open enough packs, every pack will give you 5 of these. You can, after a certain amount of packs, you just be able to get the card that you want to pull if you don't pull it. So let's go to a rare card down here. Let's say you really want this Moltres EX. It's going to cost you 500 pack points, or 5 times the amount of packs that you wanted. So this would be 50 packs. So once you open 50 packs, you can get 500 points. You can spend those 500 points on a Moltres EX. Easy. 50 times 5 is 250, isn't it? Yeah, so it would be 100 packs. 100 packs will get you this. My brain just activated math mode for a second there. Sorry. I was going with dumb idiot mode first. So yeah, you need to open 500 packs to get those, which is a lot. Or sorry, you need to open 100 packs, which is a lot, but you can get there. Now, if you open 1,250 packs, or sorry, 1,250 points worth of stuff, you can start getting, oh, sorry, normal rare cards are 150, like Kangaskhan, which is a good card for PvP. If you want full arts, all the full arts are 400. Those would be your 1 stars. If you want a full art EX card, those are 1250s. And the trainer cards are also 1250. And then the 2,500 are the crown rares, which are like the rares card that has the feature of the Pokemon that they are in the deck. So the Pikachu pack is Pikachu, the Mewtwo pack is Mewtwo, etc. And then you have the full art cards of Pikachu, Charizard, and Mewtwo all EX. Full art EX art that are the immersive arts, those are 1,500. Which is a bit much. You're better off just kind of waiting and seeing if you ever pull one than spending this many points. Especially if you just want to, like, if you're not in it for the collection, you're in it for the battling, which is what we're going to talk about today. Okay. The battle menu. Yes! This is why we play these games, so that we can battle and defeat our opponents. Unfortunately, there's no ranked yet, so we're kind of stuck. So I want to talk about collecting the cards that you need is the first thing we're going to talk about. Figuring out what cards you need to build something that you want. How to find the decks we're going to talk about some of the meta decks that are the most recent things out of the gate that you might want to build and start focusing on trying to get those decks or those 20 card lists to play. And then we're going to talk about what you do in the meantime while you're waiting to get them. Because I just showed you that the pity system works where you can get new cards, which will be relevant today. Now, first and foremost, let's look at our decks. Okay, so what decks are good in this game? Is there a tier list? Is there good stuff? Yeah, there is. Let me show you something. Boom. This is a website called Pokemon-Zone.com, and I mentioned it in my last video. And they're also pulling from a pre-launch tournament on the subreddit, Pokemon TCG Pocket subreddit. There was 150 players with 8 rounds of Swiss, and here's the top 8 players. It was a best of 3, and if you can see in the top 8, there were 2 lists that were running a Pikachu EX feature. There was 1 person in the top 8 that got top 8 using 18 trainer cards, which is a bit crazy. And then there's also a Charizard EX, an Alakazam list, a Venusaur EX, a Blaine list, which is kind of an aggro list, and then a Mewtwo EX. Now, there was another tournament that I have not the ability to share because it is in Discord, but there was a link to if I can find this tournament link. Meta tier list? No? Yeah, this is a pre-release, so some of these decks are not like really confirmed. Sorry a second here. Here we go. Current best Pokemon Pocket deck list. This is at PokemonMeta.com right here. This is another thing you can bookmark if you like, but we're going to go through this list to show you how things might have changed. So initially, people were running 2 Pikachu EXs, 2 normal Zapdoses, and 2 Zapdos EXs. Then you almost always are going to see 2 Pokeballs and 2 Professor's Researches and 2 Sabrinas in every list. These 2, 4, 6 cards are in almost every deck. Then you're going to see at least 1 Giovanni in almost every deck as well, regardless of typing. And potentially 0 to 2 potions and 0 to 2 red cards, as well as 0 to 2 X speed. So depending on the list, these are either auto include at least 1 or double up, or you have a trainer that takes priority. Because Pikachu is not running Lieutenant Surge at this list, because Lieutenant Surge works with Raichu, then they've replaced it with other items. This is the runner-up list, which is specifically the thing I just mentioned, which is a Lieutenant Surge list, because here it says, move all of your energy in your bench Pokemon to Raichu, Electrode, or Electabuzz in the active spot. So basically, you can be pumping up your bench and then play Lieutenant Surge, load up your front Raichu, which needs 3 energy, and also discards energy from it to nuke for 140. And then here, this one is just a good card. These 2 are just good cards. So it's kind of like just running Pikachu EX, and then if you need to, or normal Pikachu to Raichu, you can do that. And you can also run a Voltorb and Electrode build. This really works well because you have Pokemon that are only 1 retreat cost. And when you retreat for 1 or retreat for 0 with X speed, you can put a Voltorb or an Electrode that's about to go kaput on the bench, put it on the bench, and then put your Raichu up front, and then use Lieutenant Surge and hit him for a bunch of damage. So it's a lot of like cycling and then hitting really quickly. Pikachu EX, on the other hand, is a little different. It's put 2 energy on this thing and then hits all of the bench for 30 damage. But it does a lot more damage based off of how many Pokemon you have on the bench. Excuse me, I misspoke. But it only works with pure electric or lightning decks. All right, now Articuno has this ability to Blizzard and hit for 80 as well as damage the bench, which is quite useful if they're not weak to water and you need to get a little bit more reach and kind of finish the game. So this is a pure list, and it gets pretty explosive on turn 1 if you can get a Misty in your hand, because you can get lucky with these coins, put a bunch of extra water energy on something, and then you can kind of just go to town and hit stuff for 80 really early. Moltres and Charizard EX lists. This particular Moltres is better than the normal one because it lets you flip 3 coins just to take energy from a zone and put it on the bench Pokemon anywhere you want. So if you set up a Moltres at the early game, and then you can get some stuff on your bench, and you give this 1 energy on your first turn, you can kind of just set up a Charizard in the back, and then you give Moltres 1 energy more in order for it to run away, or you can X speed it out. So this deck really needs 2 X speeds based off of how Moltres setup works. So you can kind of see how some of these cards are working in order to do things. Articuno is literally the only thing in the deck that you need. The hand scope lets you see what your opponent hand is and red card them to kind of like disrupt them from getting the cards they need or whatever they want to play. So you can kind of just check their hand scope and then red card to take out their cards that they need for the Articuno list. Now, this is the Alakazam list. It does more damage based off of how much energy your opponent's using. So this card's much better when your opponent's got a lot of stuff, but then you can kind of use Weezing to poison them. So this is kind of a weird combo of like set up Weezing, get a bunch of, like you only need 1 energy on it, so you can kind of stack up your Alakazam in the back, And then you can use Koga when it gets too heavily damaged before it gets KO'd to put it back in your hand and hide it. And then you can put out your Kadabra, your Alakazam, and just nuke from there. So it's basically set up around those two. And again, because of Koga, you don't really need X speeds. Most of the Koga lists, you don't need X speeds if you can handle it. You can actually replace the X speeds with potions, because eventually you're gonna stall to get a Koga for an extra turn. Venusaur EX, self-explanatory. You just try to get to the Venusaur, and then it can bloom into healing itself long term. If you can get that many energy, it's crazy. It just takes a little longer with Bulbasaur, because Bulbasaur needs 2 energy instead of 1 to do anything. So it can kind of be a tough card to get going early. That's what the Executes are for. Execute's crazy good into Executor, because it only requires 1 energy for Executor to swing, and then you sometimes can just hit for 80. You just sometimes hit for 80. And then if you want it to run away, it needs 3. So because this needs 3 on the retreat cost, you have to run it with X speeds. And the nice thing about this is Erica lets you heal it. So Erica is an additional stall point. And Erica is a strict upgrade over Potion, because it heals for a lot more. But the drawback is that you can't use your other trainers in this, like your professors, your supporter cards in the same turn. I'm gonna sneeze really badly here before we get through all these. All right, here's another good deck. This is Blaine's list. Blaine basically works on getting you a plus 30 damage to these 3 Pokemon specifically. So you need these 3 Pokemon in a Blaine deck, and Blaine sets up very quickly, because all of the Pokemon are Vulpix and Ponyta into their evolutions are 1 to 2 energy, and then Magmar is just straight up 2 with a thick body without powering up. This website is called Pokemon-Zone, and the other deck is called PokemonMeta.com. So this deck gets really, really, really explosive very quickly. Basically, on your 3rd turn, you can put your 2nd energy down and you're done. That's it for the deck. All you're doing is trying to hit them for 40 damage with Rapidash, 50 damage with Magmar, or set up a Ninetales eventually to win with. You have to keep discarding cards, but you are guaranteed 90 damage, and then Blaine will push all of your cards higher. So it'll put Rapidashes at 70 damage, Magmar's at 80, and Flamethrowers at 120. And then you also can run a single copy of Giovanni to push it just a bit more, so your Flamethrower can hit for 100. All right. Mewtwo EX, simple thing is to basically get this thing to 2 energy, where you can always hit for 50, and then when you get every 2 turns later, you can discard 2 of those energy when you get to 4 to hit for 150 and nuke something. Gardevoir has the ability here where you can take an energy from your zone and attach it to a active Pokemon. So you basically get an extra energy per turn. So if you start out with Gardevoir and then you have it with 2 energy here, you can essentially put an energy on Mewtwo on the bench and then use Psyshadow to put the 3rd energy on Gardevoir. Farfetch is in this deck because it's a very easy early game card to just put down and hit for 40 damage, which is a high damage early ability. That's it for these early decks. Let's see how they changed. All right, so first and foremost, this is a 150 player tournament. This is the player they got first. It's literally the same deck list. It's just Pikachu EX, Zapdos EX, double Sabrina, double Giovanni, double Professors, and then Pokeballs, X speeds, red cards, and potions for disruption. Nuts. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Number 1 winner. Let me see here. Let's see if this is the right link. I think I was looking for this link. Yeah. So this is a Yu-Gi-Oh list deck website that I used to use. It's called Master Duel Meta for Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel, but the creator made a separate version for this particular game, and the creator's name is Decade. And this is where you can find some really good lists. I'll tell you that the CT was like top 16. These are like tournament winning decks. These icons just mean win streaks, and that means that they've gotten like 5 wins in a row with this deck. And they have some sort of like scraping system to put their decks in with their client. Okay, so that will give you some relatively decent deck lists to play, but for now we can really only pay attention to these top 16 lists for now. I want to show this deck because this is also a really solid list that I was playing, or not I was playing, but like I really like, and I'm playing a variant of this with Snom and Frostmoth. But Psyduck says you can't use supporters during your next turn. Sucks, but you can push to Golduck pretty quickly. And then Starmie EX is actually just crazy. It does 90 damage for 2, and its retreat cost is 0. So you can literally just move it to the bench whenever you want. Misty is enough to get you enough energy on any of these Pokemon. I would personally say that the Misty cards are just to combo with Lapras, because Lapras can hit for 90 damage. It's nuts. So out of this deck list, I don't have the Psyduck Golduck combo. I'm running from Snom and Frostmoth because it puts them to sleep, and then it, like, I can keep putting them to sleep, and I can build up to stall to get my Starmie ready, or I can build up a Lapras on the bench and win. I don't have Misty cards, so I'm literally just coping with double Giovanni's and Sabrina's to hope and pray I can nuke my opponent. There's a bunch of different Mewtwo lists here, but they're probably going to have a lot of similarities. Let's take the top 4 list. Looks like it's 2 of everything for the Psychics. Giovanni's a single Sabrina, single red card, and then doubles of the rest. Let's check the top 8. Kangaskhan is also another really good neutral card. Sometimes it just does nothing, but sometimes it does 60 damage for only 1 energy. Is really good. The retreat cost kind of sucks, but that's why you run X speed, so you can only give it a second one and then swap it out. Or you can just let it go down and give your opponent some points because it has 100 HP. It'll take them a while to get rid of it. Yeah. Kangaskhan's kind of just a neutral menace in most decks if you can get it. I want to show this. This list is the same as before. So that's actually really relevant to show you guys that some of the deck lists haven't changed. But yeah, I would highly recommend doing these decks. So I want to get into how not to look for decks, because you can kind of just Google around, ask ChatGPT, check PokemonMeta.com, check Pokemon-Zone.com to find stuff that you might want to build. Check the subreddit here. You can see they've got these things here on the reddit.com/r/PTCGP, etc. Okay, now let's get into the game. I can show you what we're working with. When you make a deck, you pretty much just need to make sure you have 2 copies of all the stuff that you want. So let's say we want to make a Pidgeot deck. So we automatically put 2 Pidgeys in and 2 Pidgeotos. I don't have a Pidgeot up there, but I do have 1 here. So ideally, I'd want to have a second Pidgeot, okay? But just imagine that we have 6 cards in the deck with 2 Pidgeots. Or let's actually think about this. I want to make a Pidgeot deck. I don't have 2 Pidgeots. What do I do? Great question. Let's just build this out. We're going to try to get around 8 Pokemon in the deck as much as you can. Usually it's like 2, so like to use a Starmie deck as an example, it's 2 Psyducks, 2 Golducks, 2 Staryus, 2 Starmies. And then that's 2, 4, 6, and 8. And that's kind of your base plate. If you want to add 1 to 3 more, you can. So you can go anywhere between 8 to 11 Pokemon. But out of the 8 or 11 Pokemon, a minimum of them of 5 needs to be basic Pokemon that you can throw out right away. So in the Starmie and Golduck list, it runs 1 Lapras, 2 Psyducks, and 2 Staryus. That's 5 basic Pokemon and 4 evolutions. 9 Pokemon. Then you need to run 4 additional cards that thin the deck, or get you the stuff that you get you the Pokemon that you need without necessarily needing to draw them. So that's your Professor's Research that lets you draw 2 cards. You need 2 of those, and you need 2 Pokeballs. So let's just do that. We're gonna go down here, and we're gonna hit Trainer all. Okay. Double Pokeball, double Professors. Now, we're going to check and see what exactly does Pidgeot do. We're going to long press it. During your turn, you can switch out your opponent's active Pokemon. So this one is all about hitting your Pokemon in the front and then forcing them to move when they want to keep them in. So Pidgeot's forcing your opponent to move their Pokemon around. So with that said, if you can get a Pidgeot set up, you don't need a Sabrina. So Sabrina, this is one of the few decks that Sabrina is not as useful, because Pidgeot, when as your core card setup, doesn't need the Sabrina. Does Sabrina still help? Yes, it can help in the early and the mid game when you're trying to like set up the Pidgeot to begin with. I can help you stall. So they're still good cards, but they're not the best cards. So now we need to figure out what the supporting cast is for something that cycles cards around, or maybe is another card that helps you set up. The nice thing about Pidgeot is it only needs 2 energy, so it can actually be the supporter deck. So we kind of just need another of any type to support it. So what I'm going to say is colorless. Let's take a look at colorless stuff. Farfetch'd is a good pick. We can also do something to help what we're weak against, which is lightning. So we can kind of try to go for a type advantage if we really want to. But let's just scan through and we'll clear our search and then set it for type. Yep. So now we can scan. So we can go dark types, which if we don't want to run Sabrina, we can run Koga with Grimer and Muck or Coughing and Wheezing and cycle with some poison. But the problem with that is it's anti-cohesion. It doesn't work together with Pidgeot because Pidgeot's throwing things to the back row and Wheezing is actively trying to poison things and keep them locked in the front so that they will get KO'd to the poison. Those two, not a good combo. Now, the nice thing is Hitmonlee can hit things on your opponent's bench. Interesting tactic. It doesn't hit the active Pokemon. So potentially we could use Hitmonlee to start hitting the bench, and then we can run it away, put our Pidgeot in the front, and force the Pokemon that's in the front out to pull the bench to the front and then hit the bench with more damage. So that's an alternative you can do. Also, thank you for the follow. Let's look at Grapple Locked. What can this do? Switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. Grapple Locked actually does the same thing that Pidgeot does, but Pidgeot can do it before it attacks, and Grapple Lock does it after it gets attacked. And they can choose the Pokemon. So it's a little different. Probably not what we want. What about Mr. Mime? It's literally just a staller. So you can kind of see what we're doing now. We're kind of seeing what we want to do. A lot of the status Pokemon don't do well with cycling Pokemon to the back line. And Pidgeot is not very strong. So it's like, well, I mean, I shouldn't say it's not very strong. It's not very like, the tactic wise is not as good. So what I would do here is I'm going to go to the Discord for this website, Pokemon Meta. And I'm going to go and look where, there's a Pidgeot control list here. So I'm going to go to the Pidgeot control list and check the pins in this thing. And it tells me that they like to use Arbok and Ekans with it to swap them out and then lock them in. And it runs double Sabrina so that you have more ways to cycle your opponent's Pokemon out. And then alternatively, it looks like they're running Pawniard and Bisharp. So let's check the Pawniard and Bisharp list. So this list gives you a 30 damage, 70 damage hit. So they just kind of hit hard, kind of bide your time. Or Or we can use the Arbok, which is very interesting. I actually like that Arbok list. It does similar stuff to the Koga. So Arbok will lock them in the front and only cost 2 energy, and actually is pretty tanky. So Pidgeot basically can use its ability to cycle the front line to the back line, and then you can use a 1 retreat cost to put Arbok in the front and then lock that new Pokemon in the front. And a lot of people are using this based off of like what TCG uses these cards for, and then kind of like takes those strategies and boils them down to these kind of basic versions. So what I like to do is look at these deck lists and kind of figure out what I have. So I'm gonna remove all, hit OK, cancel, OK, and then I'm gonna show you what I did here. So I wanted to build a Starmie deck because I have 2 Starmie's and 2 Starmie EXs, but the problem is I didn't have other good cards to support them with. So I know that my deck is a water deck, and I know that I want to support it with some water cards. So we'll just check some water cards. Okay, I've got the Psyducks, but I don't have any Golducks. So what could I do? I have Poliwag and Poliwhirl, but no Poliwrath, so that's not an option. Oh, okay, so I can run 1 Tentacool and 1 Tentacruel, but that doesn't seem good. Oh, I've got these. So I could run a Kingler support, which lets you throw 2 coins. If you can get heads twice, it doubles the damage. But more often than not, it's an expensive version of Starmie EX. What about normal Starmie? No, I don't want that. That's bad. And the other version of this deck runs Froakie, Frogadier, and Greninja, which I don't have. So I was like, well, my only option is to go with 2 Bruxushes, which is not a bad Pokemon. Or I can run Pyukumuku, which is not great. What can I do here? So I ended up going with Snom and Frostmoth because Frostmoth is cheap and only costs 2. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but it puts them to sleep, which is really, really annoying. So I can like still do damage and weaken my opponent while I'm setting up my Starmies. Not the best strategy. Maybe not even be the best version of this deck or even close, but it's something that I have 2 of each of them for, and I liked it better than I liked the Kingler option. So this is the Starmie deck that I built. This is infinitely better than building a loner deck, because you have more control over what other cards are in the decks. And the reason that it's even this good is because of the trainer cards specifically. Most of the decks that are in the loners don't have good cards here. If you manage to pull 2 Sabrinas or 1 or 2 Giovannis, and then you have all the other stuff, you can overload your trainers and your supporter cards in here and actually do much more than you would normally be able to do, because you don't have to run, excuse me, you don't have to run a loner deck to play. May not be as good, but it'll let you bang out the missions, and sometimes even if you're running a non-optimal list, you can just keep retrying the solo mission until you get a better hand to start with, or a better first turn or second turn to draw to see if you can defeat the opponent, because you have almost all the tools you need anyways, and you're just close enough. You just need to fill in those slots and run the trainers you got and pray you can draw the stuff you need when you need them. At least with the solo missions, more so than like a ranked mode, which we still don't have. That's what I would recommend for the time being. Well, it's a 30-minute video. This is the shortest video on the channel so far. That's kind of what I would say here. Like this deck is also we can talk about other cards that are really, really good in general, but I would say if you got them, Kangaskhan's kind of like the easy slot into anything type engine, because it's 100 hit points. It's got 30 damage times for Dizzy Punch, so you can do a bunch of damage and you can sometimes do 0. It's really good. You can also do, if you don't have those, you can run Farfetch'd. Farfetch'd is a decent starter. And then in some of the decks where you really need to get going quick, I actually put a single copy of Meowth in there because Meowth attacks, weaks, and it stinks, but Meowth draws a card. So if you really don't know what to do, Meowth and Persian are a great combo to kind of put in a bunch of decks as like filler for the time being. And because they're colorless, they're extra flexible. And like I said before with Pidgeot, it's a bit anti-synergistic, or it has like anti-synergy with a lot of decks because it keeps flinging stuff to the bench. And it takes a little while to set up. So if you really want to get some cool stuff, don't recommend Pidgeot, don't recommend Raticate. Kind of just look through your colorless options and see what you can get. I thought this was going to have a lot more detail in it, but yeah. The best things that you can do is look through the trainers that you have and try to build decks based off of the rare cards, and the trainers are the two things you should focus on when trying to build your own decks. I hope this was helpful. I don't know if it was. Please give me any comments. I'll try to respond in the comments. I do my best here as a new YouTuber. I don't even know if I would qualify myself that yet, but yeah. Try to find something that you can do. Another thing you can do is if you're running a lightning deck or a water deck or a fire deck, and you're not specifically running a fire deck with Blaine, Eevee and the Eeveelutions are very, very helpful, flexible picks with medium rarity. It's basically TCG if you come from a DCG background, yeah. But Farfetch is kind of, yeah. Farfetch is a good way of thinking about it as your Lord and Savior. But technically speaking, close seconds are Meowth and Kangaskhan when it comes to rarity. I also have a full art Meowth that I like using, so there's also that. Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to belabor the point anymore. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know if you have any more questions. I'm more than happy to either make a new video if it's a good enough question. Instead of answering it, I might give you a short one. And otherwise, I could maybe just answer your question there in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. I'm really enjoying this game a lot. For those of you that are curious about there's going to be more Go content, yes, there will be more Go content. I actually had planned a third video, but I don't have the time to really record it or the desire, about Gigantamax for Gengar. I was not able to do one today, but I want to do more stuff with that. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff. Hit the bell if you need to, whatever. I don't really care. I'm just making this stuff for me. So if you guys want to like and subscribe, great. Thanks. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.